You meet someone. Something clicks. It feels like fate. But it isn't fate. It's chemistry running a program written 200,000 years ago. You don't choose who you fall for. Not really. Something older than you makes that decision first, and hands you the feeling afterward, already labeled as love. Here's the uncomfortable part. The traits that make you feel that spark are not always the traits that make someone good for you. Sometimes they're the opposite. And the gap between those two things has a name in psychology, and a very old explanation in anthropology. Let's start with the feeling itself. That instant pull toward a certain kind of person. Tall, maybe. Confident, maybe. A particular laugh, a particular tension in how they look at you. You call it attraction. Your brain calls it something closer to a threat assessment. Anthropologist Helen Fisher spent decades studying this exact question. She scanned the brains of people who had just fallen in love and found something strange. The regions lighting up were not the regions tied to reasoning or judgment. They were tied to the dopamine reward system. The same system activated by cocaine, by winning money, by any high-stakes uncertain reward. Love, in the brain, looks a lot like risk. That's the first clue. Falling for someone isn't a calm decision. It's a gamble your nervous system is placing on your behalf, before you've had any say in it. Now here's where it gets stranger. Psychologist John Money coined a term in the 1980s, the love map. It's the idea that somewhere in early childhood, your brain builds a template. A rough sketch of what love and safety and attention are supposed to feel like, based on the people who raised you. Not what they looked like, necessarily. How they made you feel. Present or distant. Warm or unpredictable. Reliable or exciting in a way that kept you slightly on edge. That template gets locked in early. And for the rest of your life, without your permission, you go looking for it again. This is why so many people find themselves circling the same type of partner, again and again, even when that type has hurt them before. It's not a character flaw. It's pattern recognition, running on childhood data, still convinced it's protecting you. Think about that for a second. The part of your brain responsible for finding love is not comparing candidates by logic. It's comparing them to a feeling from decades ago. A feeling that might have come from a parent who was inconsistent, or distant, or intensely present only sometimes. And so you grow up chasing inconsistency, because inconsistency once meant home. Do you see the trap yet? The people who feel the most exciting are often the people who most closely match an old, unresolved emotional pattern. Not the people who are best for you. The ones who feel most familiar. Familiar and good are not the same word. Your brain just hasn't figured that out yet. Now zoom out further. Past childhood. Past your own lifetime. Into the deep evolutionary past, where these wiring patterns first got built. For most of human history, choosing a partner wasn't about long-term happiness. It was about survival math. Anthropologist Sarah Blaffer HRDY has argued that early human mating decisions were shaped by one brutal question: who can help this child survive to adulthood? Not who is kind. Not who is emotionally available. Who has resources, protection, and status, visible enough to signal at a glance. That's why certain traits still spike your attraction today, even in a world where none of them matter for survival anymore. Confidence reads as competence. Height once correlated with physical protection. A slight air of unpredictability can register as high status, because in ancestral groups, the people who could afford to be unpredictable were often the ones with power. Your brain is still running that old signal detection system. It hasn't updated for modern life. It's still scanning strangers for ancient survival cues, and mistaking those cues for chemistry. This is why you can meet someone stable, kind, consistent, and feel almost nothing. And meet someone chaotic, and feel your pulse spike immediately. Stability doesn't trigger the ancient alarm system. Uncertainty does. And your brain has learned, across millions of years, to pay very close attention to uncertainty. There's a term for this too. Psychologists call it intermittent reinforcement. It's the same mechanism that makes slot machines addictive. A reward that comes unpredictably is far more compelling than a reward that comes reliably. Consistent affection barely registers. Affection that appears and disappears keeps your brain locked in, waiting for the next hit. Now put it all together. A childhood love map built from an inconsistent caregiver. A dopamine system that rewards uncertainty over stability. And a mating system inherited from ancestors who needed to read status and power in a split second, not warmth and reliability. None of these systems were built for your happiness. They were built for your ancestors' survival. And they're still running the same code, in a world where the actual danger has mostly disappeared. Here's the twist almost nobody expects. This isn't a flaw you need to fix through willpower. Willpower barely touches it, because the pull isn't coming from your conscious mind. It's coming from systems older than language, older than conscious choice itself. But here's what does help. Fisher's research also found something hopeful. The brain's reward circuitry, the same one that gets hijacked by chaotic attraction, is trainable. Familiarity itself can eventually become the reward, once you give calm, consistent connection enough time to register as safe rather than boring. The problem is most people never give it that time. The old system screams for the intense feeling immediately. The new, healthier bond takes weeks or months to start feeling like anything at all. So people leave, right when it was starting to actually work. Which brings us to the mirror. The thing you feel when you meet someone and think, this is it, this is fate, is very often just your oldest wiring recognizing an old shape. Not destiny. Familiarity, dressed up as certainty. The chemistry you're chasing tonight, scrolling through profiles or replaying a conversation in your head, was built for a world where survival meant reading power at a glance and clinging to inconsistency because it once meant home. You are not broken for feeling this pull. You are ancient. Every time your heart races for the wrong person, some very old part of you is doing exactly what it evolved to do. But there's more to this story. Because the pull isn't only ancient. It's also social. It's shaped by everyone watching. Anthropologists who study mate choice across cultures keep finding the same strange pattern. People don't just pick partners based on their own private preferences. They watch who else wants that person first. This is called mate copying, and it shows up far beyond humans. Female guppies prefer males they've seen chosen by other females, even over males they'd otherwise ignore. Human studies replicate the same bias. Show someone a photo of a stranger alone, and they rate them one way. Show them the same photo surrounded by admirers, and the rating climbs, even though nothing about the face changed. Your ancestors lived in small, tightly watched groups. A partner desired by others was already vetted. Someone else had done the work of evaluating status, health, reliability, before you even had to look twice. Copying that judgment was efficient. It saved time. It saved risk. So some of what feels like your personal chemistry is actually a crowd's opinion, absorbed so early and so quietly that it feels like your own instinct. This explains something else too. Why the moment someone becomes unavailable, they often become more desirable. Psychologists call this scarcity bias, but the root of it is older than the name. Scarcity was once a signal. If someone suddenly had many suitors, or was pulling away, your ancestors' brains read that as evidence of value. Worth competing for. Worth chasing. Modern dating apps exploit this same circuitry without even trying. A profile that seems in high demand triggers the same ancient alarm as a desirable partner surrounded by rivals in a small prehistoric village. The technology changed completely. The wiring underneath did not move an inch. Now here's a harder question. If so much of attraction is inherited, copied, or triggered by scarcity, how much of it is actually about the other person at all? Psychologist Arthur Aaron ran an experiment that gets cited constantly, and for good reason. He had strangers sit across from each other and answer a series of increasingly personal questions, then stare into each other's eyes for 4 minutes straight. A striking number of pairs reported feeling something close to love afterward. Not because the two people were secretly soulmates. Because vulnerability, sustained attention, and mutual disclosure are the actual ingredients of bonding. The specific person sitting across the table mattered less than the process itself. That finding should unsettle you a little. If connection can be manufactured in a lab through structure alone, then the story you tell yourself about a specific person being the one deserves some scrutiny. The feeling might be less about who they are, and more about what the interaction did to your nervous system. None of this means love isn't real. It means the mechanism behind it is far more mechanical, and far less mystical, than it feels from the inside. So where does that leave you? It leaves you with a choice most of your ancestors never had the luxury of making. They made it for survival, in groups too small to offer many options, under pressures you'll never face. You have something they didn't. Enough safety, enough time, enough distance from immediate danger, to actually notice the difference between an old alarm bell and a genuinely good match. That noticing is the entire skill. Not suppressing the pull. Not ignoring the chemistry. Just pausing long enough to ask which system is talking. The one built to detect status and threat in a hunter-gatherer band. The one built from a childhood template you never chose. Or, finally, you. The chemistry you're chasing tonight, scrolling through profiles or replaying a conversation in your head, was built for a world where survival meant reading power at a glance and clinging to inconsistency because it once meant home. You are not broken for feeling this pull. You are ancient. Every time your heart races for the wrong person, some very old part of you is doing exactly what it evolved to do. The only real question left is whether you'll let that old system keep choosing for you, or whether you'll finally teach it what safety is supposed to feel like.